Shalom Haverim. Welcome back, friends, to your show, Building Bridges, when we discuss of the ways Christians and Jews can live and work together. And we are discussing some very interesting topics about how this can be done. But today, as last time, we have some friends that will guide us through these questions. Today with us is Reinaldo. Welcome, Reinaldo.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Gerardo. Pleasure to be here.
We also have Sergey. How are you doing, Sergey?
Shalom, I'm doing great.
Awesome. And today we also have Daniel. Welcome, Daniel.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed this discussion and everything that I can do for the Jewish-Christian friendship, I will do.
That's very great. My name is Gerardo. I'm your host. And today we have a very interesting topic. The question for you today is, Shabbat, the Sabbath, can be observed by other groups besides Jewish people? What do you think, Daniel?
This is a very interesting topic, as you said, and for some people, there are challenges to do so. Most of Jewish people who practices their Judaism will tell you what they learned, and they learned that Sabbath is for Jewish people.
Only.
They will even only because they will even quote some texts from the Bible where God says to Israel, for example, through the prophet Ezekiel, I gave you the Sabbath as a sign that you are my people. However, if you go deep and you study the entire Bible, you will come to the conclusion that the Sabbath is the gift of God to humanity. And if you come back to the text of creation, you will understand that way before the existence of Jewish people, you have God showing the best way to live a meaningful life, which was to work 6 days, and God worked 6 days, and then to take rest, to contemplate the work that was done, but also to live something meaningful through resources, to enjoying the work done through the opportunity to connect with people. And if I look correctly, I will read just one text from Tanakh, from the Old Testament, as we say, and it is in Isaiah chapter 56. I remember learning by heart in Hebrew this some years ago in Strasbourg, some 40 years ago, and it was a blessing for me. The text, the second verse of chapter 56 says, "Blessed is the man who does this, and the Son of Man who lays hold on it, who keeps the Shabbat." This is the idea. I remember that it was my surprise when I learned it in Hebrew to discover that the Son of Man, that is translated in English, is the word Ben Adam. And then you ask a question, is it given to Ben Adam, to a man who is the son of Adam, to keep the Shabbat holy, or just for some category of people? I would say that from my perspective, my understanding of the Word of God, there is a huge blessing and a step toward unity to come to the biblical understanding of God's commandment and to do exactly what God did. And I can say, from my Christian perspective, Jesus Christ kept the Shabbat holy. All disciples did. And we can say that it is evident if you read the history of Christianity, you will understand that it was done by the entire, but by all Christian communities for sure until the destruction of the temple in 70 AD. But you had so many examples from the history that the Sabbath went way before.
I'm going to ask Sergey now. Since you are Jewish by upbringing, your family, tell us, how was in your family the celebration of the Sabbath? And also, a second question, how do you see Sabbath now in Israel? How is it celebrated? Because maybe some of our friends, some of our viewers don't know the true meaning or what is Shabbat. So please tell us about your childhood and also about your life now in Israel, how people celebrate the Sabbath.
Oh, of course. We have one day which is a little bit different than others, and we call it Shabbat. We call it a holiday or day of rest. And I would like to come back to biblical text. It's written, remember the 7-day Sabbath to make it holy. And I think not just about the Israel, which is have a day off once a week, which is Shabbat or Sabbath. But I think about all the countries that they have a day off on Sabbath. And I guess that everyone will remember it. How? Normally people remember that tomorrow morning they don't have to wake up 6 early in the morning and to go to the work. They remember that tomorrow it's a Sabbath day. But it's not the way how it's written in the Bible. In the Bible it's written, remember for a reason, to make it holy. And here we're coming to a very interesting situation. Sometimes we're using different words. We keep Sabbath, we make it holy, we celebrate Sabbath, and there is a variation of what are you doing on Sabbath. And from that perspective, you know, in Jewish background, always was a big question. What is forbidden to do and to make during the Sabbath day, and what really
can you do?
Really not, and you can do. And you know, and in this way of thinking, we're coming back to Mishnah, where we can find 39 forbidden works that today, I guess, were developed very well to hundreds, a long list of what forbidden and what not. But in my understanding, you know, in my family, it always was a little bit different. We didn't try to keep the Sabbath. We tried to celebrate this day, not to put attention and, you know, our focus, what is forbidden, but really to enjoy and celebrate the fellowship between us, the free time that we can concentrate to something unusual, something special, something spiritual and holy, and touch something that you cannot touch during the other days of the week. So this is I would say was my experience. And in Israel, it's of course it's huge diversity, because we have religious people that keep the Sabbath. They are not driving their cars, they are not lighting the light, they are not doing many forbidden works. And we have the secular people that driving cars and going to the beach and enjoying the life. And I would say that if you would like really to understand what it's really biblical meaning of the Sabbath, you have to find a balance between those two extremes. Not to be dependent on the list what is forbidden, and not to be totally free and do whatever you want. But for me, I would suggest that real Sabbath, it starts from a real celebration to reconnect with your God.
Thank you, Sergey. Reinaldo, you live in Jerusalem, and I'm always interested on how religion and life develops in different parts of the country. I live in Tel Aviv, so it's very different from Jerusalem. So tell me, Reinaldo, maybe how do people experience the Sabbath in Jerusalem? I'm thinking maybe Western world. I'm thinking about maybe what you have seen in the day of preparation on Friday. What do you see in Jerusalem on a Friday night and also on a Sabbath?
Well, Jerusalem is a city which has a more larger religious population than other cities in Israel. Usually, there are some cities that are very religious, like Bnei Brak, others are very religious, everyone, But Jerusalem, there is a mixture, because you have Jewish and you have Christians and you have Muslims, But when you think about the city, most of it, which is in the Jewish side, which is the largest portion, normally everyone stops by Friday, at least the beginning of the afternoon to prepare for Shabbat, for Sabbath. And then we don't have buses. We don't have, public transportation. People will still stay at home celebrating or keeping the Sabbath, Most of religious go to their synagogue or their religious meetings, Other people who are not religious, well, they use cars, but much less than some other places, to visit family, to go together to some place, to spend time together. But it's very interesting because for me, I remember the first time I lived there, and when it was some decades ago, it's really different. It's a time that you stop. You stop your regular buying, selling, working, studying, and you have a time off, which even for those who are not religious is very beneficial because we need to stop. Need to reconnect to something with family, friends, but even above all, those who believe, reconnect with God, And it comes to the two questions that we posed, first of all, for Jewish or not Jewish, for what to do. There is a beautiful small booklet which has a very profound thoughts about Sabbath. Why is it important? This booklet, the name is Shabbat, Sabbath, written by the Abraham Heschel, which was one of the rabbis, more famous rabbis in the 20th century in the United States, in the world, And he has a perspective on Sabbath that's beautiful. Sabbath, the word, the creation, is the first thing that's called holy, Kodesh.
Yeah.
But people think about holiness on things, what to do or not to do. But holy means is related to the word sanctuary, a place of meeting between God and human beings. And he says that God, when he established his first sanctuary, instead of establishing one place, he established his sanctuary on time. So that it's very interesting. This is his sanctuary is on time. Why? A sanctuary is a place where you go to worship God, to meet God, but also to receive blessings. You go there so that the divine can bless you, can help you, you can reconnect with the source of everything so that your life can be changed for better, So God, instead of establishing a sanctuary in one place, people would need to travel there, And some people will never be able to do it. To meet with God, you'll be a limited experience, limited time. Some people will never do it. But God, when he put his sanctuary on time, it's not you that goes to meet God, but God comes with you, to meet you wherever you are. It's a day. If you accept that day where you connect with God, he'll come to you wherever. You are in South America, you are North America, you are Africa, Europe, Israel, Asia, in the islands, in Australia. Sabbath will come to you and can be a place of restoration, of rest in the Lord, in God. to be blessed by Him, to be renewed, and then it becomes a source of immense, great blessings, because this meeting with the Creator changed its creature for better.
Thank you, Reinaldo. So Sabbath is a gift. Sabbath is a blessing. And Sabbath is something to be enjoyed, is to be a delight. And I've been asking you questions about how you have experienced Sabbath in the land of Israel. And now I want to have your perspective, but not only your perspective, maybe you can explain our viewers what happened with Jesus. How was his approach to Sabbath, and what we can learn from this rabbi about what he taught his followers about how he perceived the Sabbath?
I will say two things. First, my own experience. I will start with my youth. I grew up in a family that kept the Sabbath holy. I was born in Niš. This is a very known historical city, the birthplace of Emperor Constantine, known person from the past. And it was a communist system when I grew up there. The problem was that communists, they didn't like Christians. And for me, to keep the Shabbat and to leave the school before 6 o'clock in the evening was a huge offense. But still, I left school before time. And
so you can be home and keep the Sabbath.
So basically the school was until 6 p.m., but the Sabbath started at 4. So whatever you want to do, I chose to leave school before the time to go back to home and to celebrate the Sabbath. And I asked my father, why should I do so? And he said to me, very interesting, it stays in my mind. At that time, we didn't have euro, but the reference was for wealthy people, US dollars. And he said, my son, imagine someone gives you 24,000 US dollars and you put on your account. And then someone comes and he says, 2,000, give it to me. Then you will have only 22. And someone else says, 1,000, give it to me. I know you don't like robbers. This was his language. God gave you 24 hours of rest. Nobody should steal this rest from you. And I was thinking seriously, and I understood he's right. If God said, you have 24 hours of freedom, you have 24 hours for resourcing, just do so. This is my gift to you, as you said. This is how I started to keep the Shabbat in the way the Bible says. Regarding Jesus and his disciples and his theology of Sabbath, what I remember especially is what I studied in the classes of ethics. Jesus accepted and respected the Shabbat according to the commandment, but never put the commandment over a human being. Commandment was given for the well-being of persons, and not persons to work for the commandment. This is what Jesus says in Mark chapter 2. Sabbath was made for men and not men for Sabbath. The commandment of Sabbath is a gift of God to help us to regulate our life and enjoy the time that He said, time, as you said very rightly. The time is everywhere. Wherever you are, you have the opportunity to be blessed because your time is blessed. In Israel, in wherever you are, you will enjoy this time. So Jesus didn't put commandment and asking human beings to be slaves of commandment, but he gave the commandment to be the blessing for human beings.
The words of Jesus are very interesting because he says, I'm the Lord of the Sabbath. And I think Jesus was making the point that Sergey was making.
Yeah.
It's not a list of rules. It's not
Exactly.
a burden. It's a gift. And he showed that he cared for his humanity because he performed miracles on the Sabbath. So, Sergey, can we also say something else about this subject, about Jesus and the Sabbath?
I think that Jesus was thinking in a harmony with common Jewish understanding. And I would like to quote the very famous philosopher, Jewish philosopher, Joseph ben Shlomo. He was writing the book Introduction to the Philosophy of the Judaism. And inside of this book is a chapter, the idea of the Sabbath. So here I'm quoting him. The essence of Sabbath, it's not that God created the world for 6 days and needed rest. Here, it's not just the lack of work on the Sabbath, but the idea that the Sabbath received extra reality to being added something not related to the material, but value dimension of holiness.
Yeah.
And I think and truly believe that Jesus, through his being here, was trying to explain us this special adding, this special spiritual meaning.
One more question, Sergey. So in Israel, maybe in Friday, we hear the shofar, the horn, and people really respect the Sabbath. Some people even can be violent if you don't keep the Sabbath. But okay, those are a few. But many people really, they respect the Sabbath. They maybe join as a family. It's a happy gathering. Maybe people, when they go to Jerusalem, when they go to the Western Wall, maybe you will see the youth singing and even dancing. So please tell us a little bit about that. How can Sabbath be a joy and not a burden?
And I think we all happy when we are happy. And you're right, people in Israel, even secular people, like that we have a special time, just set apart, of our busy life to make something different. And people like to get together, to gather together and to spend time. Some religious people, they gather in synagogues. The secular people gathering around a campfire or whatever they would like to do together. And they really stop, their businesses and switch their mind to something different. And through this experience, I see many blessings that we can just really experience in our daily life. And I see that in Israel it works very well when people realize that this is a special time. This is a special time for family, for myself, for something different. And we really enjoy it in Israel.
So can we say that when God gave us the Sabbath, He really cared about our health, our mental health, our maybe even family time? Because people today are very stressed. They work too hard. Maybe sometimes they are running everywhere. and they don't know how to stop. And God gave us this so we can connect, so we can stop and maybe even reflect and spend time with the family. There's a little time left, but Reinaldo, I want to ask you, maybe, is the Sabbath just something from Genesis, something from the past? Or maybe is Sabbath pointing also to the future, to something that God is preparing for humanity?
Well, I think it points to the past, to the present, to the future. It's very interesting that in the end of Jewish prayer in the synagogue, there's a special prayer saying that day the Lord will be one, and His name will be one over all the earth. You know, by Yom Hahu, he started this reference. This is a prophecy of Zechariah. But then the text that Daniel mentioned in the beginning, Isaiah 56, he said that the Son of Man. But then he comes, the sequence of the text is specify which one is the Ben Nechach, is the son of the foreigner.
Yep.
Who chose to keep the Sabbath. And God says, I will take him to my place, to my sanctuary, and accept his prayer, his worship, because my house will be a house of prayer for every people.
Yeah.
That means, in the prophecy of Isaiah, it's pointed that the Sabbath, the worship of the Creator in the Sabbath, is a point of unity for all humanity in the worship of the Lord. Mm-hmm. And probably this prophecy that Zechariah speaks, also is referred in Isaiah, that the Sabbath will be a common point of meeting between men and God, between men themselves. So between Christians and Jewish also.
Thank you, Reinaldo. So across the scriptures, we see that the Sabbath plays a very important role. And even in the life of Jesus, because it's very interesting that when we go to the Gospels, we see that Jesus died on a Friday, and he rested on the Sabbath, even on his death. And he resurrected on the first day of the week. So even Jesus, through his ministry, he showed us the real meaning of the Sabbath, and that the Sabbath has always been a blessing. It's very interesting for me that when you go to the Bible, you see that Jesus began his ministry preaching and saying, I did not come to abolish the law, I came to fulfill the law. So the Bible tells us that the law of God, the Sabbath, has always been a blessing for humanity. And as we've been discussing, it's not something that has to divide us. It's not something that someone can say, it's just for me. No. It's a gift from God for humanity. So I really invite all of our listeners to reflect that the Sabbath can be a blessing and can be a point of a bridge, not something that has to divide us. It's something that can unite us. We thank you for being with us one more time. May the Lord bless you.